Is Las Vegas drunk?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey guys, this is Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia. It's morphin' time.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kings 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Hey, TGIF, everybody, and Happy New Year. This will be the last Locked On Spurs for the year 2022. So we appreciate all of what you've done for us here at Locked On Spurs for the past year. And as always, we thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Second, let's check out Locked On Sports. We're having a treat for you to end the new year, or the old year now, heading into the new year. Having a quick roundtable, and we're asking if Vegas is drunk, because they must be, because apparently the Spurs are the top teams in landing Trae Young and James Harden. We're going to be discussing that and then look at tomorrow night's game, Spurs-Mavericks. Who is ending out the year here with me on Locked On Spurs? Well, we got two. We have, well, let's bring him on first, because Rudy Campos will sweep the league. First of all, coming off the bench, sick right now, and he's actually doing something different than a recap. So that's got to be refreshing for you, Rudy.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit different, but, I still have fun with the recap. I'm looking to have fun right now, too. And this is my flu game. So, yeah, Jordan, watch out.
Oh, well, make sure to follow him on Twitter at Sweep the League. And also is Joe Garcia with Two Shots Podcast. Joe, I thought they say whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but it looks like Vegas is just out of control right now.
Yeah, Vegas is out of control, but they got to do something to kind of stir the pot. I mean, Spurs Twitter is a dumpster fire anyway, but just, the rumor now with Trae Young, come on now. I mean,
yeah,
Spurs fans are going to get all excited about that, but I think that's what we're going to dive into. Really, I mean, would they really want him as part of this team? That's a big question. Yeah.
Yes, that's definitely a great point. Let's go to start off with this. And in case you did not know, Las Vegas released its betting lines on where Trae Young could land if he's traded by Atlanta. Now, Rudy, Joe, everybody knows about the turmoil in Atlanta, chemistry issues. There was a run-in with he and Nate McMillan. There's possible fit moving forward. So if the Hawks were to trade him, the Spurs are coming in top 10 team, 6 overall, with I think it was a plus 85 heading into the trade deadline off season. Now, Rudy, you were very, very vocal. You even texted me saying, I wanted to talk about this the last time we did a Locked On Spurs. Well, here we are. You were vehemently saying, hell no.
Yeah, I'm totally against seeing Trae Young in a Spurs uniform. There's a lot of players in this league, especially now, that are selfish players, and he's one of them. He doesn't care about winning. He doesn't care about developing players, making a team better. Trae is about Trae, and that's the very common thing about a lot of players these days. It's all about them because why? It's all about the contracts, all about the next big one. It's all about the endorsements. It's how can this league make my life a whole lot better rather than how can I make this team better? Trae Young is a very selfish player. I do not want to see him in the silver and black. If he is, it's just going to be a total dumpster fire.
But Joe, he is one of the lead scorers in the NBA. They call him Ice Trae for a reason, because he gets cold as ice and he can just kill a team. Wouldn't you think the Spurs would want a player who career averages over 20 plus points per game? Where do you stand, yay or nay on Trae Young?
I would have to say nay, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, since the NBA is a business, and far be it from me to go with my heart and just say, hey, I wouldn't want him on the team. At the end of the day, the numbers have to work in favor of both teams, So if the Spurs wind up taking on the contract of one Trae Young, again, the numbers would have to work. They can go ahead and realistically take on his contract because they do have the cap space. If that also comes with some, much coveted picks, I think that might sweeten the deal somewhat for the San Antonio Spurs. And eventually they could go ahead and look at moving on from Trae Young if they want to go ahead and make the trade, and maybe even go ahead and trade him to another team that might, again, be able to take on that contract and acquire more picks. So it's something that you can go ahead and say, yes, you would want him on the team, so you could go ahead and flip him for future picks. But
Mhm.
again, if you're going to go ahead and utilize him in the context of how is he going to contribute to the San Antonio Spurs, he's going to have to learn a new system.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be as easy as just plugging him in, and hopefully he can go ahead and learn the system that much more quickly than other players, because it still takes some time to get used to the Spurs system.
Mhm.
So you have your pros and your cons. At the end of the day, I think the Spurs would handle this much like a business. So they would probably be looking to flip Trae, quite honestly. And to the dismay of Spurs fans, you're going to have those that want him on the team, then you're going to
Mhm.
have those that don't want him on the team. Will Trey go ahead and make the team that much better or worse? I really can't say for sure, but will it translate into more wins for the team? Possibly. But at the end of the day, there's still going to be a lottery team. So
Right.
Trey isn't going to just come in and be the magic fix. That's what I'm saying.
But Rudy, I thought the Spurs already have a Trey Jones. How much of his emergence this season kind of put a curb in any thought about the Spurs chasing Trae Young in some sort of a deal?
It plays a big curve. I mean, I don't know why you keep bringing up Trey Jones to me every time, Jeff. You know I'm not a Duke fan.
Hey,
Um,
hey, Joe. There's a running joke here. You have to bring up a Dookie each time when Rudy's on because he doesn't like the Duke Blue Devils. But
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I
yeah,
saved
with
the Trey Jones point for you, Rudy.
yeah, the Trey Jones thing. You know what? Trey's development from the end of last year to the beginning of this year and all season is the same model that we've given him. He's Mr. Consistent. He's proving that he can run the team. He's proving that he's the best fit for the team right now. So if you were to bring in a Trey Young, you know what? You're slowing his development if he is staying on the Spurs. But not only that, you're slowing the development of your other guys, Devin Vassell, Kelvin Johnson. That's less touches for them, less scoring opportunities for them. Trey's not going to make it easier for anybody on this team. He knows he's on a losing team, and he's going to just want to get his own. So it's a real mind scratcher of the Spurs were ever to inquire even about Trae Young. You have the better of the tree right now in Trae Jones.
Do you have to take a shower every time we do a Locked On Spurs and we bring up a Dookie, like just to get
I
the filth
I
off
go
you?
through I go through 2 bottles of mouthwash every time.
Uh, Joe, I look at the situation, Vegas saying Spurs, one of the better odds to get Trae Young. But another wrench in this could be in the offseason. No, not trading for Trae Young, but if the Spurs were to miss out on Wemby and let's just say they landed number 2, there's Scoot Henderson. Don't you think that'll also make any type of deal for Trae Young moot?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I mean, what are the Spurs' chances of getting Trae Young? It's not going to be very good. Like the Vegas odd makers have said, it's the sixth best odds to land Trae Young. Will the
Mhm.
Spurs inquire? Possibly, just to see if there's interest there as far as maybe some picks or even cash, something to make it make sense. But
Mhm.
I mean, they got to throw their name in the hat. I would assume. But at the end of the day, I
Right.
mean, I highly doubt that this deal will actually get done. And will it,
Mhm.
if they do acquire Trey, will it affect their cap moving forward? Absolutely.
Yeah.
At what the Spurs are wanting to do, I believe right now is they're just wanting to go ahead and keep that cap space open. Again, if they can go ahead and acquire, not even Trey, but maybe another team, maybe a three-way deal there to go ahead and acquire a
Mhm.
player just to, get that, I guess, to get those picks and just
Mhm.
acquire the player and then immediately waive him or trade him or,
Right. Flip
some of
them.
those
Yeah.
scenarios that we've already seen
Mhm.
pan out. But I mean, I am not a big fan of the Spurs even throwing their name in the
Mhm.
hat for one Trey Young,
Right.
because it will have ramifications affecting the cap space. And if they
Mhm.
want to wind up wanting to keep him on the team, who are they going to wind up losing? I mean, you're already starting to look at Jakob Portal, maybe hidden free agency. If they're going to want to acquire him, I don't think they're going to have enough cap space to go ahead and acquire both Jakob Portal and keep Trey Young on the team. And then again,
Right.
it goes towards free agency and also trying to acquire some of the talent that you already have currently on the team. If you acquire Trey Young, again, you're not going to be able to keep everyone, and one of those might be Rudy's favorite here, Trey.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and then there's this too, Joe. Trey Young is just let's just say he's not a good defensive player, and that's putting it mildly. Defensively, that's his biggest weakness. He gets burned, and So there's that fit as well. Defensively, would he fit? Doesn't look like it. But Rudy, we're forcing you to talk highly about a Dookie now. We're doing it on purpose. At least I'm doing it on purpose. Trey Jones, excuse me, brings it on the defensive end as well. I mean, I think he has a huge edge over Young in that department.
Yeah, you know what, Trey Jones is a better on the ball defender. He's average. I don't know if he's averaging a steal a game or right under a steal a game, but overall, the defense of the team is way better under Trey Jones. You see a lot of players that are actually playing with him alongside with him. You know, they're into the defensive side of the ball, and that's something that Pop stresses a whole lot. With Trae Young, probably one of the least defensive-minded guards in the league. So you lose a lot. I mean, yeah, you gain 20, 25-plus points a game. You gain some pretty good shooting. I mean, yeah, he does shoot the ball really well, but he does miss a whole lot as well. But to what cost? I mean, you're losing the development of your current players. You're, kind of messing with the lineup that you had. And like I said, the previous Locked On Spurs was you've got to start it. That starting five is starting to gel now. So why would you want to mess with that?
Yeah, and Atlanta's going to want to gut that Spurs roster. They're gonna have a high price tag for Trae Young.
You're losing Devin or Keldon. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it's going to come down to something like that. They're going to want a big price. I mean, look what Atlanta gave up for DeJounte. No, look what the price tags on these players, especially an all-star guard. So I forget that he is an all-star. That drives his price tag up more. Rudy, what about Blake Wesley? You think again you have that viable backup point guard as well in any type of Trae Young deal? We haven't really seen him in a Spurs uniform. He's been in the G League, but there's some promise there, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot of questions coming out of Notre Dame when he was drafted, but he kind of solved a lot of those issues in the G League. When we saw him play, the minutes that he got with the Spurs were really, really well, and he actually did really good in those minutes. So, viable backup point guard, absolutely. Future starting point guard, I wouldn't count it out. In fact, I really think, if anything, he is the future starting point guard for the San Antonio Spurs.
All right, well, there you have it. So it looks like Rudy and Joe are saying, hell no to Trae Young and the Spurs making a deal. Unless Joe wants to get that Spurs Trae Young silver and black jersey, right, Joe?
No, man, I would never spend my money on any jersey unless it's going to be one of the OGs, because as you've seen, some of these Spurs fans that brought Primo jerseys, for example, are left holding the bag,
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, when we get back, we're going to continue talking about Vegas and asking, are they drunk? Are they been partying too much out there, those Vegas odd makers? Because supposedly the Spurs have solid odds at getting James Harden. Yeah, you heard that right. James Harden. Once again, we're here on Locked On Spurs, the final one of the year 2022 with Rudy Campos and Joe Garcia. But before we continue our chat right here on Locked On Spurs, I want to bring to you a message from the NHTSA. Look, you're hanging out with some friends, you're putting back a few drinks, a few become a few too many, evening comes to an end, and yeah, you think about calling for a ride, but you're like, nah, I live nearby, I can make it home, no big deal. What's the worst that can happen? Insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, total your car, or worse yet, you kill someone. Everyone knows the risk about driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe, plan ahead, get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. A message from the NHTSA. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Joe Garcia. Follow him on Twitter at Two Shots Podcast, and Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on Twitter at Sweep the League, and make sure you let Rudy know how much he loves them Dookie boys. Loves them. Loves Zion. Loves Zion. Right, Joe? Right, Joe? Isn't Rudy a big fan of Zion?
Oh no, he absolutely despises anything that comes out of Duke. He's a North Carolina fan through and through. So yeah, Duke to him is just trash. It's always going to be that way.
That's pretty nasty trash.
Yeah. Well, we have to keep it PG, because of the shit.
Yeah,
the type of show that we're doing with Jeff.
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. You save that talk for Sweep the League. Joe and Rudy will probably just go off on that. But hey, let's continue talking about the Vegas odds makers. Once again, Vegas is looking ahead, and with James Harden Looking at free agency this offseason, the Spurs names popped up again, tied for the eighth best odds, 10-1 with the Clippers of landing James Harden. Now, Joe, I know you're ecstatic about this. You're saying go Spurs, goes get Harden in the Spurs uniform, right?
No, he would not be a good fit here with the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, you're getting let's say, a player that used to be
Mhm.
a bona fide superstar at the decline or the
Yeah,
end of his
like he's
career
not the
now.
Houston James Harden anymore.
Yeah, he's not that Houston James Harden, and you can clearly see that when, currently with the team that he's with, the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, he's become more of a facilitator, I think, now because he's passing the ball a lot more. If you're looking at his assists, let's be honest. He's not quite his athleticism quite isn't where it used to be. So he's having to rely on other aspects of his game. But a declining superstar, former All-Star, I mean, he's going to acquire, I think, too much cap space for the Spurs realistically to even want to
Mhm.
take a look at him and keep him
Right.
here, or even acquire him and put him on the team. I mean, there's much better options that can be had at a cheaper price. Let's be
Mhm.
honest, So I
Right.
think the team that the Spurs currently have, the young guns are showing some promise. So I mean, why would you want to go and acquire one James Harden? I mean, he would just
Right.
be I think bring toxicity to the locker room, and that's something you
Mhm.
want to kind of get away from.
Rudy, it feels like Harden and the Spurs have always been linked. Wasn't there a few couple seasons back, or maybe this past off season? Oh, Harden to San Antonio, chasing them, and this and that. But do you think it just simply comes down to this, whether it be James Harden or Trae Young, why San Antonio is being picked because of the cap space and the amount of draft capital they have and the young talent they have? You think that's why the Spurs are being targeted as a destination for several, or at least these two All Stars?
Yeah, and you kind of just took out everything that I wanted to say about it because it's what it is. The Spurs have one, if not the most cap space available this coming off season. They have so much draft capital from the deals that they made with Derek White and DeJounte Murray, as well as that Chicago Bulls deal for DeMar DeRozan. They've got a lot of draft picks that are coming up. So it's them, and it's actually Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City has a bevy of draft picks as well. They're not going to quite have the cap space, but the Spurs do. So anytime you hear a player, it could be all the way from James Harden, Trae Young, Joel Embiid, anybody like that, seeing major superstars, they're going to tie them to the San Antonio Spurs.
Mhm.
Because of all the cap space available. Not only that, they always go to the Coach Pop thing. Oh, it's Coach Pop. He can make this player a better player. James Harden, on the other hand, if Trae Young is a dumpster fire, James Harden is the warehouse burning down. He's definitely
Wow.
not a type of player that you'd want. I mean, he's a very, very selfish player. Very selfish. He's worse than Trae Young. You saw him in the Houston years when he was there. It was in the ball of James Harden. He was the only one getting them shots. He would only make a pass when he was having absolutely make one. Again, do you think development matters under Trae Young, development under James Harden? You may as well just have the team sit out and go down to Austin to get more playing time.
Joe, you look at the Harden situation, he would be a veteran. He would be a former NBA MVP, something the current team lacks. You still don't think that's going to be a good fit, right?
No, I still don't think it's going to be a good fit. I mean, like I said, you can get better options at a cheaper price at this point in his career, So he wouldn't be a good fit in the locker room as well. And when you're looking at what the Spurs run as far as their offensive scheme out there, it's more of a run and gun, getting up and down the court now because
But don't
that's
you
their
think that's
strong
what James
suit.
Harden would succeed in? That kind of
He
style?
used to be able to succeed in that. Now he's kind of on the decline of his career. I don't think he's going to be a good fit with these young guns, and the way that they like to get out in the open court. There's a lot of speed and athleticism with this current, San Antonio Spurs young roster now. And then, unfortunately for James Harden, I think he's better suited to be that, let's say, veteran player, maybe
Mhm.
coming off the bench with another team, not so much the
Yeah.
San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah. Rudy Harden off the bench at this point in his career, I don't think he's there yet.
And no, he's not going to be coming off the bench anywhere unless it's a team that maybe like a Brooklyn. If he went back there,
Yeah.
that would be a
A
team he could
stack.
probably come off the
Yeah.
bench for. But he's not quite at Blake Griffin status yet, where Blake was a superstar and now he's coming off the bench in Boston. Not quite there yet, but he is on a decline in some sort of ways and aspects of his game. Just not quite yet. But I mean, even as a player himself, I mean, you see Philadelphia having some success, but if you look at the stats, it's when Harden takes less shots and he gets his teammates more involved. So if you mean to tell me he comes to San Antonio, he's not going to have the same success because he doesn't have a Joel Embiid or a Tobias Harris here.
Yeah, right. So you're saying Knicks on James Harden and San Antonio Spurs should not chase that, right?
It would probably be time to change fandoms if that happened.
Oh, or just move the team already to say we give up.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying to
relocate.
get anybody in trouble, but yeah, I mean, probably.
Rudy's going to say move the team to Austin.
Yeah. Joe, you're saying nay as well.
Yeah, that would be a big no on my part. I mean, at this point, there's no reason to even take a hard look at James Harden. I mean, there's just no rhyme or reason to it. You know, you'd have to take a hard pass.
Yeah, I agree. And also, too, for me, another hard pass for Harden and Young is because of the draft. You know, the Spurs, we're getting a whiff on the number 1, and they get number 2 or number 3. And Scoot is there. I mean, that's a viable option. That's a big. I'd rather have him than Trae Young or James Harden. By the way, Joe, do you have any extra Vicks and Sprite laying around for Rudy here?
A Sprite? You have to say it, the Mexican way.
Oh, did I said it wrong?
Yeah, you said Sprite. Anytime you go to a Mexican restaurant here in San Antonio, you've arrived at a legit place when they ask you if you want an Sprite. So Rudy needs some Sprite.
Isn't that like how they also say Spurs, Spurs?
Spurs, yeah, that's how you arrived, Jeff.
Everything.
Yeah. So he needs some. Yeah, what he's gonna need some Vicks. He's gonna need some Sprite, and he's gonna need maybe his wife to rub the egg over him. Give him the little song sana.
Tried the egg thing, but I kind of got hungry and ate it. So sorry.
Yeah,
he was so just hot with fever that he just cooked the egg and he ate it. Okay.
No, I was talking to Rudy about this in the previous episode of Locked On Spurs. Let me get your thoughts on this, Joe. How did this even start? Like, when did this culture just say, you know what, Vicks and Sprite fix everything? Like, when did that happen? Like,
I don't know.
It probably started. I just want to know, like, which one of your uncles decided to go out there in your generations, Joe, and say, you know what, get these two together, this combo, and this fix everything.
Oh, I know it didn't come from my uncles because my uncles would be drinking some tequila. That's the cure-all for them.
Well, there you go. There you go, Rudy. Maybe that's the missing ingredient. That'll definitely make you feel better fast.
I tried one already, and I coughed really, really bad, so I'm going to wait a little while longer on that. But I hear bourbon actually works pretty good, too.
You being serious, or you're just messing around?
No,
I've heard bourbon actually works really well when you have a sore throat.
I wonder why. You think it's just because of the alcohol content and whatever it is?
I'm assuming so. I mean, I've heard bourbon, I've heard whiskey, I've heard a lot of those darker type alcohol liquors is probably the best. So I got a liquor store right behind me, so I'm about to go walk over there in a little bit and start buying cases of it.
Rudy can literally jump the fence to go to the liquor store, but he'd have to fight off some of the transients that live behind the house.
Don't do that. Don't do that, dude. Rudy, are you just sick because of all this Dookie talk? Like it got to you, like it literally impacted your physical well-being?
Yeah, it hit me. It hit me hard. All this Duke talk made my immune system weak, and I got sick. So I'm not gonna blame you, Jeff. I'm not gonna blame Locked On Spurs, but I will say that you guys played a part of it.
Thanks. I feel better now. I feel so winded. All right, when we get back with Rudy Campos and Joe Garcia, we're going to be looking at tomorrow's game, Spurs-Mavericks. Yeah, Luka Doncic. Yeesh. Spurs got themselves a handful tomorrow night versus Dallas. Right here on Locked On Spurs with Joe Garcia of Two Shots Podcast and Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Hey, but before we do that, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Again, check out Locked On Sports today. Biggest stories around the sports world, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. And I also want to talk to you about Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. Now, it's a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about, like that streaming service that you bought and you watched just one show on and then you just forgot, or that free trial that you never forgot to cancel. or even use. So Rocket Money will quickly and easy identify the subscriptions for you so you can stop paying for the ones you don't want. Rocket Money makes canceling subscriptions as easy as a click of a button. Simply find the subscription you don't want and press cancel. Simple as that. Rocket Money will cancel it for you right then and there. No more long hold times with customer service or tedious emailing back and forth. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving an average person up to $720 a year. I've used it. It's helped me cancel a lot of subscriptions that I don't even know or just forgot about. So if it can do that for me, it can do that for you. Stop throwing away your money, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. Again, rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs, the final one for the year 2022. And we're having a roundtable episode with Joe Garcia of Two Shots Podcast and Rudy Campos of Sweep the League, an alien Rudy Campos, a man who was willing to come off the bench because somebody who will not be named was super late to start the show. We won't mention him, Rudy.
It wasn't
I'm
me.
not going to mention him. You know, Rudy was going to come off the bench for you sick, Joe. You know that, right?
Yeah, but I had to come in last minute and reclaim my starting spot. I got to show.
It's so fun. Didn't I text you that, Rudy? Didn't I say last second?
Yeah, you did. It was like, be on standby. I'm like, okay, all right. We get the lemon and honey out.
Well, that just made you get up and maybe get to that bourbon sooner to get ready for the show.
Yeah, I actually drank some hot tea, so my voice is actually deeper and better than what it was when you had texted me this morning. So.
Hey, this is not one of those phone call lines, Rudy. It's not one of those old school 90 ones. You
after
Joe remembers, right? Joe, you were
the late nights watching TV, seeing the little commercials come out with the phone number. The party line. I think that's what it was called, Jeff.
I think Rudy was the party line. He was the go-to party line back in the day for San Antonio.
I was a part of the team line from Saved by the Bell with Nitro and whoever else that was Zach Morris.
All right. Well, before this show gets off the rails, let's take care of business. Spurs-Mavericks tomorrow night at the AT&T. Luka Doncic. Eesh. I mean, Rudy, what do you start with him? I mean, it begins with Luka. It ends with Luka for Dallas. And historically, Luka has just put it on the Spurs. He averages a near triple-double versus San Antonio in every single game he's played against the Spurs. Starts with him. How are you feeling about tomorrow night's game?
I feel like I feel right now, pretty bad about going to tomorrow night's game.
Got the setup. He got the setup, the serve I sent him. All right, go ahead.
That was perfect. Luka right now at 33 points a game, 8 and 8, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, almost a triple-double. He's a player that once he gets going, he gets going. He's not going to be able to be stopped, as you could have seen from the last, one of the previous games he's had where he had 60-plus points and a triple-double as well in that game. Not only that, you got to worry about a guy like Christian Woods. You got to worry about the shooters and, Bullock and Finney Smith as well as Hardaway Jr. and Spencer Dinwiddie. Dallas is completely loaded on the perimeter. So if the Spurs have any shot in this game, you're going to need a massive, massive game from both Jakob Poeltl and Jeremy Sohan. Keldon's going to have to attack the basket as well if he does play in the game. So I think right now I'm taking the Mavericks. Really, you're just going to have to let Luka get his and contend with everybody else, but you got to dominate the paint. Get Christian Wood into foul trouble. That'll be their biggest weakness.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think you just let Luka do Luka, and you just try to shut everybody else down. You think that's going to be the game plan for the Spurs team heading into tomorrow night's game, Joe?
I think the Spurs are just going to look for any edge that they can get at this point. I mean, you're looking at both teams, and I mean, they're going in the opposite direction. I mean, the Mavericks have a record of 19-16. The Spurs are 11-23. They're 14th in the Western Conference, while the Mavericks are 7th in the Western Conference. And, looking at just, the last couple of games here, I mean, the Spurs, not so good. The Spurs are 2-3 in their last 5 games. The Mavericks fare a little bit better than the San Antonio Spurs. The Mavericks currently are 4-1 in their last 5 games. So it's going to take a miracle here, I would say, for the San Antonio Spurs to best the Dallas Mavericks. The only strong suit that the Spurs really have going for them right now versus the Mavericks is getting those young guns out in the open court and just on the fast break. Unfortunately for the Spurs, they just don't have the cohesiveness needed, nor the personnel to
Right.
really lock down and go at the Mavericks from a defensive standpoint. And you're looking at the Spurs and historically right now, and this particular season, they're dead last. When it comes to defense in the NBA,
Mhm.
which does not bode well for them when they're looking at a team that has one Luka Doncic. I mean, you're looking and seeing what he's done over the course of the last 3 games.
Right.
Against the Rockets, he dropped 50. Against the Lakers on the 25th on Christmas Day, he dropped 32. And just coming off that, great game that he had
Historic.
against the
Yeah, that
Knicks,
historic triple-double, yeah.
60 points, man. I mean, that's
Mhm.
insane. 21 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. And you're gonna tell me that the Spurs are gonna be able to stop him? No. I
Yeah.
just don't think that they have, the personnel right
Well,
now to do that. But I mean, like you said, they can let him have his and just try to go ahead and, contain the other, supporting cast around Luka. But again, that's a tall task for the young Spurs.
and we should make this clear. This is being recorded obviously before the Mavericks game, so we don't have the injury report. So all we know, Luka could sit out this one. The Spurs are that team now where they're like, oh, they got the Spurs on the calendar. Let's sit down all our star players because this should be a cakewalk. But heading into tonight's or tomorrow night's game, I should say, the Mavericks have won 2 straight road games, so keep that in mind. I feel like this is not Locked On Mavericks. This is Locked On Spurs, Rudy. And when I look at the Spurs, I say, you know what? Keldon Johnson is back on that 3-point shooting slump. So I think he needs to get going. I mean, they're going to need him to be. I mean, everybody's got to be, dotting their I's and crossing their T's tomorrow night versus Dallas. But KJ again struggling from the 3 line, Rudy.
Yeah, KJ on the 3-point line. I mean, it's consistent, it's inconsistent, it's back and forth. He's got to be on point. And a team against the Mavericks, that is one way to stop him. I mean, I haven't stopped him, but to get the better of them, get your 3-point ball going. If Devin and Keldon can actually continue shooting the ball well and shoot the ball really well in this game, makes a lot of life easier down below for guys like Jakob and Sohan to dominate in the paint. What you want him to do is, like I said, have Pirtle and Sohan do what they can down below, be aggressive on the boards, get Christian Wood into some foul trouble. That'll allow the Mavericks to kind of collapse a little bit as well because they're getting dominated inside. And it'll free up, Devin as well as Trae Jones even. He can shoot the 3 ball. But now let's not forget they do have Doug McDermott too coming off the bench too, who can also shoot the 3 ball as well. So
Right.
I think it's going to be a really good game. Might be for the first 5 minutes only, or it might be an entire game. I have no idea. But right now, what it is shooting the 3-point ball for Keldon. It's got to be on point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everybody's going to be on point, especially against the Mavericks. This is a team, Rudy, we talk about this every game. 4 quarters of basketball. They got to play 4 quarters of basketball. They got lucky versus you. I mean, they almost gave that game up to Utah. I mean, they were just seeing it wither away. But again, this team has to play 48 minutes of basketball, and as Rudy mentioned, it's not just Luka Doncic. It's Finney Smith. It's Reggie Bullock. It's Wood. It's Spencer Dinwiddie. So this is a team that's a little loaded. So Dwight Powell, Kemba Walker has been added to them. So yeah, this is definitely a team the Spurs are going to have a lot of fits against. Joe, your thoughts, prediction, who wins?
Yeah, for the Spurs, I'd have to say that unfortunately for them, they're going to wind up dropping this game, and
Oh,
the Mavericks are going to be the victor. They're going,
getting an L to close out the year, huh?
yeah, I'm going to give them an L to close out the year. But I mean, you're looking at what could actually be, transpiring here, and you're going to have several key players that are still questionable, even today against the Knicks. You still have
Yeah.
Keldon Johnson, who's questionable. You have Doug McDermott, Devin Vassell. I mean, these are some of your better players, and if they're a no-go, I mean, it's just not going to bode well for the San Antonio Spurs, even against the game that's occurring tonight against the New York Knicks. You have Barlow, who is going to be out. Charles Bassey out. Blake Wesley out, of course, because of his injury. Then you have Keldon Johnson questionable, McDermott questionable, Devin Vassell questionable. So realistically, what you could be looking at is the Spurs going on a 2-game skid to go ahead and end the year. So not looking too good for the San Antonio Spurs. So, hey, it's a game that's going to happen on New Year's Eve. So what if they lose? Well, you can go ahead and drown your sorrows during the game and continue to do so to celebrate the new year. You got that to look forward to.
Or like Rudy, just hop the fence and go to the liquor store.
Hop the fence.
I mean,
He makes it sound like it's that simple, Rudy. Like you just have a chain link fence in your backyard.
Well,
You
well,
know,
that's what I envision. I envision Rudy's home next to a liquor store, and that's probably what sold him on buying that house. Just saying, you know what, I'm gonna go with this one. Well, sir, it has the worst resale value. I don't care. Yeah, there's a liquor store. We're good.
I've got barbed wire across the fence, so that should tell you how bad it is.
We're running out of time here on Locked On Spurs. Rudy, your prediction on tomorrow's game, and are we going to have the Davis Bertans reunion in San Antonio? A tribute video to him
On the revenge tour of all former Spurs players, let's probably expect Davis Bertans to go off for 30 tomorrow. I'm taking the Mavericks. There's no way. If Lucas plays, especially, there's no way I see the Spurs winning. Just talk up another L.
Real quick, again, we're running out of time here, but Rudy, do you think he's MVP? You put him up there, or you still got the usual suspects? Right
now, no. Jokic is my MVP so far. Clear winner.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I have Joker. Luka. I think Luka's in the mix.
Giannis.
Don't forget about Giannis. Giannis is always in the conversation.
Giannis is
right now. Luka's probably fourth for me right now.
Who do you got number one? You got Joker number one, obviously.
My list is Jokic, Tatum, Embiid, and then Luka, then Giannis is what I have.
Okay, that's not bad, Joe. That's a good list, right, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I take that list on any day. That's pretty much what I was thinking as well. So you got to have Doncic in there. Doncic is going to be in the conversation, but again, he's probably not going to garner the amount of votes needed to win the MVP. He's going to have to make a strong push, just like that 60-point performance consistently.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, running out of time here on Locked On Spurs. Got about 3 minutes left here. So let's start off with Joe. Brag about Two Shots Podcast.
Yeah, we're looking to record a new episode this week to end the year. So look for that. And, maybe we'll have Jeff come out and be a guest before the year ends.
I'm down. Rudy, what's cooking over there at Sweep the League besides bourbon?
Well, we're talking NFL as we always do, NBA and life hacks as well. But I got to keep it going. I know I got a second MVP. We're doing the players of the 50. We have 2 Garcias. Let's not forget about Alex Garcia, former Spurs player. We're going to add him to the list. Not only that, man, Alonzo G. You guys got to remember that guy.
Oh my God. Spurs fans loved him. Remember that?
Yeah, and the Italian stallion, his own Mark Ivoroni, also a San Antonio Spurs. So those 3 shout-outs. What's that?
Become a coach for the Spurs?
Believe so. I believe he did. I know he was a coach in the league. So yeah, I believe so.
All right. And you got one more before we put a wrap?
Yeah, I can give you one. How about everybody has a microwave in their house? Remember, Vinnie Johnson was a San Antonio Spurs for a little bit.
One season, right?
Yeah, I believe it was one season.
He was already busted up microwave, though, right?
Yeah, he was getting replaced already. So
it was the Goodwill microwave that you're going to get at a bargain price, Jeff.
All right, we're done talking here. We want to hear from you again. Let Joe know your thoughts on Twitter at Two Shots Podcast. Let Rudy know as well at Sweep the League, and subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast: Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, Ken's 5+ app, and much, much more. And again, thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day for the entire year of 2022. We're putting a wrap on it here, and we'll be back in the new year discussing more about your silver and black and much, much more. So for Joe Garcia and Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're putting a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.